Our feed loader's down, Todd. We're down without it. We got a spare loader in Sacramento.
Okay.
Fix the thing.
John, shut the up.
Fix it or
Are you gonna do anything right?
Gold Rush has been lying to you. Those massive gold discoveries and dramatic breakdowns aren't what they seem. For over a decade, the show has convinced millions that striking it rich is just one lucky dig away. Could it all be carefully staged to keep viewers hooked? Once we uncover the truth behind the cameras, massive riots across the U.S. will be unleashed. Gold Rush fixes machines too fast. Think about it. Real miners spend weeks, even months, dealing with broken equipment, waiting on expensive parts to be delivered, and struggling through endless paperwork to stay within legal limits. Yet on Gold Rush, a hydraulic line the length of a football field gets fixed faster than your Wi-Fi resets. Anyone who knows a thing or two about heavy machinery will tell you that's not how it works. Getting parts shipped to the Yukon isn't like ordering a pizza. So why does everything miraculously get patched up just in time for the next big gold haul? Maybe because the show must go on. Before we dig deeper, it's clear that Gold Rush isn't just bending the truth, it's crafting a story. And what's really happening behind the scenes will leave you questioning everything. And speaking of gold, let's talk about those so-called cleanups. There's an episode in Season 7 where the crew meticulously picks out large nuggets before weighing the final yield. The next thing you know, the final weigh-in is a disappointing number. But wait, where did all those big nuggets go? It's almost as if they disappeared into thin air. Strange, isn't it? Makes you wonder if some of that gold is being shuffled around to manufacture drama. The show also loves to push this idea that these miners are rogue rule breakers, just barely skating by regulations to hit their goals. The truth? The producers make sure every permit is in order before filming even starts. Regulators are often right there, just out of camera view, making sure everything is by the book. So all those moments where it looks like they're sneaking past the system, scripted nonsense. But hey, nothing keeps an audience hooked like a little manufactured rebellion. They love to talk about the so-called life-threatening dangers on the show. Remember that dramatic river crossing with all the heavy machines? They made it seem like a desperate fight for survival, as if one wrong move meant disaster. But in reality, miners do this kind of thing all the time when a bridge isn't strong enough to hold their equipment. It's not a reckless stunt or some last-ditch effort, it's just part of the job. And that bear scare? More over-the-top drama. Experts will tell you that the constant noise from trucks, drills, and people would keep most animals far away. But of course, that wouldn't be exciting enough for TV, so they play it up like a real threat. Have you ever noticed how some miners just vanish in the middle of the season? One week they're there, and the next, no one even mentions them. In real mining, workers don't just walk off the job like that. They have contracts, legal responsibilities, and serious commitments. But somehow in this show, people leave all the time. And where do they end up? Many of them pop up on other reality shows. It makes you wonder, were they really miners or were they just playing the part for the cameras? It wouldn't be surprising if they were more interested in screen time than actual gold. Now, let's look at the numbers, because this is where things get really interesting. The show wants you to believe Todd Hoffman and his crew are making a fortune. They flash those gold-filled pans and celebrate every weigh-in like they just struck it rich. But let's take a closer look. Running multiple mining sites is incredibly expensive. They have to pay for labor, lease equipment worth millions, fuel giant machines, and keep their wash plants running non-stop. Then there are the land use fees, maintenance costs, and countless other expenses. The show makes it seem like pulling in 50 ounces of gold in 1 week means instant profit. But even with today's gold prices, after all those costs, they'd be lucky to break even. So how do they always seem to come out ahead? The answer is simple. The real gold isn't coming from the ground. It's coming from television contracts. Think about it. Between sponsorships, production deals, and all the money reality stars can make from appearances and promotions, the mining operation itself is probably just a side gig. What's more profitable, spending months digging in the dirt for unpredictable gold or cashing in on a guaranteed TV paycheck? It's no wonder they keep coming back for more seasons. The audience thinks they're watching a tough, high-stakes mining adventure, but in reality, they're watching a business built on cameras, contracts, and entertainment. And that's something the show will never admit. Now let's talk about the miners not getting paid. The show makes it sound like Jack and Todd Hoffman are barely scraping by, unable to pay their crew, but dig a little deeper, and it turns out that the people you see on camera aren't exactly volunteers. Every miner who gets screen time is getting a paycheck, and not a small one. Parker Schnabel, the so-called struggling young miner, is making $25,000 per episode. Monica Beats? She's pocketing $175,000 per year just for appearing on the show. Meanwhile, James Harness, who was supposedly fired, may not have even been let go at all. Was that whole storyline just another way to crank up the tension? Feels like it. If you think the miners on Gold Rush are experts, just wait until you see how many barely knew anything about mining before being on the show. Gold Rush hires fake miners. Then there's the issue of experience, or rather the complete lack of it. Most of the people on Gold Rush are portrayed as rugged, seasoned miners, but in reality, many of them have little to no experience in the field. That's not an accident either. Hiring actual professionals would mean fewer mistakes, and fewer mistakes mean less drama for the cameras. Real miners wouldn't be making half the blunders you see on the show because, well, they wouldn't be making money if they did. The stakes in real-life mining are way too high for that kind of nonsense, but when the cameras are rolling, every screw-up is just another episode's worth of entertainment. Speaking of manufactured drama, let's talk about that infamous locked-up dredge from Season 7. The team buys $1 million machine, but oops, there are locks on the power box and they can't start it. Then out of nowhere, a group of workers from High Bar Mine appear and say, "Hire us or you're not getting those locks off." Convenient, isn't it? That whole situation smells like a setup, designed purely to keep viewers on the edge of their seats. And if you think that's just a coincidence, you haven't been paying attention. Now let's crunch some numbers. Todd Hoffman's mining operation is supposed to be running on razor-thin margins, but if you actually break it down, he's spending 10 times what he's supposedly earning from gold. One year they barely pulled 100 ounces, yet they somehow managed to invest hundreds of thousands into new machinery, additional crew, more trucks, and wash plants. Oh, and let's not forget building a pond because, oops again, they don't have water access. And despite all this, he still can't afford to pay his employees. The math isn't mathing, but wait, Hoffman isn't just a miner, is he? He loves to put on the act of a hard-working, rough-around-the-edges guy who just wants to make a living off gold. But in reality, he's knee-deep in Hollywood. He even set up his own production company, Gold Standard Television, aimed at producing shows with global appeal. Sounds an awful lot like someone who's more interested in the entertainment business than mining. And once you start looking at the show through that lens, everything starts to make a lot more sense. The scripted drama doesn't stop with mining operations. Ever notice how there's always a fight brewing between crew members? That's not just bad luck. Jimmy Dorsey, one of the former cast members, spilled the beans. Producers intentionally push the miners into conflicts to create on-screen drama. They poke, prod, and stir the pot until tempers flare. It's no different than throwing two animals in a cage and waiting for them to fight. Sure, some arguments might be real, but the show's creators know exactly how to keep tensions high. After all, conflict makes for great TV. And let's not forget Parker Schnabel. The show loves to paint him as the poor, struggling underdog who's barely scraping by. But in reality, he's been sitting on millions for years. By 2020, his net worth was sitting comfortably at $10 million. That's not exactly the picture of a desperate young miner just trying to make ends meet. The whole "I need to make enough to keep my crew fed" act is just that, an act. Then there's Jim Dorsey's so-called departure. The show made it seem like he walked away due to impossible conditions and a grueling 72-hour Gold Rush deadline. But that entire storyline? Completely scripted. Dorsey didn't leave because he wanted to. He was written out. After he left, he came forward saying he broke a rib, never got paid for his work, and that the whole thing was staged from the beginning. Discovery Channel and Todd Hoffman, of course, denied it all. But when you start piecing it all together, the pattern is pretty clear. And what about James Harness? According to the show, he was dramatically fired by Todd Hoffman. But when Harness himself spoke about it, he said that never actually happened. The show made it look like Todd personally cut him loose, but if you watch that scene again, you'll notice something suspicious. Todd isn't even in the same frame. That's because it was edited together to fit the show's storyline. The truth? Harness wasn't there anymore, and the producers needed to make his exit dramatic. And really, at this point, is anyone even surprised? The thing about reality TV is that it's rarely ever real, and Gold Rush is no exception. That doesn't mean it's a bad show, but it does mean that if you're taking everything at face value, you're missing the bigger picture. The show thrives on exaggerations, scripted conflicts, and manufactured drama to keep audiences hooked. Sure, there's real gold mining happening somewhere in the mix, but a lot of what you see is designed for maximum entertainment value. The show may be about gold, but the real story is about the people searching for it, and not all of them are there for the same reasons. The biggest Gold Rush fails. Despite all this, for years, Gold Rush has kept people watching, not just for the gold, but for the drama, failures, and occasional victories. From clueless beginners to seasoned miners, every season has thrown something wild at the cast, and not all of them made it through. But let's be real. It's not just about the gold, it's about who can actually handle the pressure and who crumbles when the dirt doesn't pay up. When Todd Hoffman and his crew first showed up in Alaska, they had big dreams and almost zero knowledge of mining. They thought digging for gold would be as simple as running machines and waiting for riches to pour in. Reality hit hard with broken equipment, frozen ground, and barely enough gold to keep them going. Their struggle was rough, but it set the stage for what Gold Rush was really about, finding out who had the grit to survive. Meanwhile, a teenager named Parker Schnabel was stepping up at his grandfather's mine. While the Hoffman crew was floundering, Parker was learning fast, turning his small operation into something huge. Unlike the others, he didn't just hope for gold, he went after it with a plan. Then came the backstabbing. Fred Hurt, better known as Dakota Fred, didn't waste any time grabbing the Porcupine Creek claim when the Hoffman crew missed a payment. It wasn't illegal, but it was a brutal move that sent shockwaves through the show. And let's not forget when the Hoffmans decided mining in South America was a smart idea. The jungle chewed them up and spat them out, proving that mining is tough even when you aren't freezing in Alaska. They battled dangerous terrain, unpredictable weather, and local diseases, all while trying to find gold in a place they barely understood. On the other hand, Tony Beets wasn't messing around. He went all in on a 75-year-old gold dredge, convinced he could bring it back to life. The project was insane and it took years, but if there's anyone stubborn enough to make it work, it's Tony. Parker, never one to be outdone, set a ridiculous goal of 2,000 ounces of gold in one season. People doubted him, but he not only hit the mark, he crushed it, pulling out over 2,400 ounces. That moment cemented him as a powerhouse in the industry. But Gold Rush isn't just about the gold, it's about the people behind it. Parker's grandfather, John Schnabel, was a mentor to many on the show, and his passing in 2016 was a heavy blow. He was the kind of person who actually knew what he was doing, and his wisdom kept Parker grounded. Then there was Rick Ness, who had spent years working under Parker before deciding to start his own mine. He quickly learned that being the boss meant dealing with constant breakdowns, never-ending expenses, and a crew that depended on him to make things work. Speaking of crew dynamics, the Beets family brought their own kind of chaos. Tony's tough attitude, combined with his kids learning the ropes, made for some tense moments. Meanwhile, Dave Turin had one of the biggest meltdowns in the show's history, leading to his departure after a heated argument. But he wasn't gone for good. He came back with his own spin-off, tackling abandoned mines and proving that sometimes a fresh start is the best move. And of course, there were the fights over money. Parker and Tony got into a nasty dispute over royalties, proving that mining isn't just about digging, it's about who controls the land. Parker, who had built his operation on Tony's claims, found himself in a tight spot when Tony decided he wanted a bigger cut. But business isn't personal, right? Wrong. In mining, money means survival, and neither of them was backing down. Parker Schnabel didn't just grow up around mining, he was raised in it, and nothing was going to stop him from making it big. From teen miner to gold boss. Parker Schnabel wasn't born into an average family with a picket fence and a 9-to-5 routine. He came into the world on July 22, 1994, in Haines, Alaska, a place where gold mining wasn't just a job, it was a way of life. His parents, Roger and Nancy Schnabel, were no strangers to hard work, and the family name was already tied to the rugged world of mining. But if anyone set the course for Parker's future, it was his grandfather, John Schnabel, a man who knew every rock, crevice, and hidden vein of gold running through the Big Nugget mine. While most kids were busy playing video games or riding bikes, Parker was out at the mine, watching, learning, and getting his hands dirty. Heavy machinery wasn't just some far-off concept to him. By the time he could walk, he was surrounded by it. The rumble of engines, the clatter of rocks, and the glint of gold dust in the sunlight were all part of his daily life. Most teenagers spend their 16th year thinking about getting a driver's license. Parker? He was already managing daily mining operations and calling the shots. The crew working under him had been in the industry for decades, yet here he was, barely old enough to vote, taking charge like he had been doing it for a lifetime. Unlike most kids with college-bound dreams, Parker saw things differently. Why waste years in a classroom when there was gold waiting to be dug up? He skipped college without hesitation, doubling down on what he knew best, mining. That gamble paid off fast. His first year running operations on his own, he pulled in over 1,000 ounces of gold. That wasn't just some small-time win, it was a clear signal that he was onto something big. But Parker's life wasn't just about finding gold, it was also about showing the world how it's done. That's where television stepped in. The Discovery Channel's Gold Rush wasn't just another reality show, it was a deep dive into the brutal high-stakes world of gold mining. Parker first appeared in the second season, and almost instantly he became a standout. He wasn't just some young kid tagging along, he was leading the charge, breaking records and proving that age meant nothing when you had skill and drive. As the seasons went on, Parker's reputation only grew. Year after year, his mining operations got bigger, his gold totals climbed, and his leadership became even sharper. It wasn't just luck. This was a guy who worked harder than anyone, took risks when others hesitated, and never backed down from a challenge. When faced with setbacks, and there were plenty, he found ways to push through and come out on top. Of course, it wasn't all about work. Parker knew that life had to be about more than just chasing gold. Despite his intense focus on mining, he made sure to take time for the people who mattered. Is Gold Rush an honest look at real miners, or is it just a scripted drama designed to fool us all? Tell us what you think, and remember to like and subscribe for more.